welcome to BharatShakti.in. I'm Brigadier Chatterjee, editor BharatShakti.in. We've been running this series about Sri Lanka and the Indian peacekeeping forces operations over there. So far, we've run 6 episodes. That included the first one with General Kalkat, who was the overall force commander. The interview was conducted by Nitin Gokhale, our editor-in-chief. Thereafter, we went on to Jaffna, Babunia sector, Batikulawa, Trincomalee, and finally about the employment of artillery and armor and mechanized infantry in Sri Lankan operations. Today, we are going to continue with this series, but in a different fashion. What's there available for you is not the history of the struggle in a particular sector, but more of experiences of various people who fought. It's a new book that our friends who are our guests today have put together. The book is Valiant Deeds, Undying Memories. Let me introduce the guests for the evening to you. Uh, we have with us two colonels from the army. Colonel Atul Kochhar, he's from the 1st JAK LI, a very famous battalion, and he has about 22 years of experience in insurgency operations. And that includes, of course, quite a bit of time spent in Sri Lanka as part of the Indian peacekeeping force. Welcome to the episode, Colonel.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to go on this wonderful platform.
Thank you, Colonel Kochhar. The other guest is Col BR Nair. Uh, Col BR Nair was commissioned in the artillery and thereafter switched over to the intelligence corps. And he's a very sought after analyst, very sought after speaker. And thank you so much to have found the time for us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brigadier Chatterjee, for having me on.
Right. With both of you veterans of Sri Lanka, let's launch ourselves somewhere close to your book and then we'll get to the book. My first question is to you, Colonel Atul. Uh, it is, tell me what motivated you people to undertake this kind of a project. That's one. And the second thing is, it's not a narrative that's entirely written by you or Colonel Nair, but you got hold of narratives from people who were on the field and who actually did the job and collected their combined writings also between the covers of your book. So why that kind of a model really?
Firstly, the motivation for this project actually it just started off very innocently to create a WhatsApp group because one day in one of my bigger groups, my NDA 68 group, to my surprise, I found few of my colleagues they were in Sri Lanka, but I didn't know. So then I realized that this operation there seems to be a void in our military history. If we talk of our glorious history after 47, and I decided that it's very surprising that we were there, but I'm only realizing it now. So I said, let's create a WhatsApp group. We have so many WhatsApp groups for all kind of affiliations. So it started off very innocently just to exchange notes. It started off incidentally on 12th October 2019 when the heliborne landing had just been undergone in Jaffna. So, but that was a coincidence. That group was formed that time. So thereafter, after about 6 7 months to 1 year, I realized we had undergone a lot, but I was not satisfied with the type of literature which is available. Most of the books have been written by some generals, some brigadiers, and I felt that account of the foot soldier, the person on ground was missing. And the stories were so fascinating, and even now, I find it very difficult to believe that what we have all been through, especially the ones who are unfortunate in the initial Jaffna operation. So I then decided that we have to go beyond this. Then I got onto a book. Then once I got onto the book, I said, no, the logical end is we have to get onto the legacy. So that is how it gradually developed. Otherwise, the intention was never to write a book. So now we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel and we want to link up with legacy. So this is a more of a legacy than a book.
Right.
Now, coming to the second part as to why I took accounts, because this operation each was being fought in silos. So something Babunia, something was happening. Jaffna, if something different was happening, and in different phases you would have different things. In particular, something was happening, then Trincomalee, something else was happening. And I wanted ground soldier narrative. I wanted it to come out from us, because if today we are still saddled with NSAS and sometime back SLRs, it is because we have not dwelt and asked the ground soldier his viewpoint. So this void I wanted to fulfill, and of course the legacy part, like I've already said. So I thought the best way is to get individual accounts, because I did not know, like Nair sir was in Jaffna, he wouldn't know what's going on down south. I didn't know what was going on down northwards. I knew about Batti Trinco, we were there. Babunia is a void for both of us, in fact. So it could only be filled up by individual accounts, and that's
Okay.
how I arrived at this model.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's a very fine explanation of what really went into the motivation part of it, as also the construct of the book. Right. My next question is to you, Col Nair. Uh, both of you fought the same war, the IPKF war. It started as peacekeeping and it was all mixed up, and it immediately became peacemaking, and thereafter, perhaps, it really graduated to a war of any other kind. That was the kind of situation that you were there. Now, my point is, we were caught unprepared. There's no doubts about it. We were caught unprepared. But that's not the main issue. We've been caught unprepared in 1962, even as recent as Kargil operations. Well, we didn't really have the information. We were caught unprepared at the end of the day. And there was a lot of dichotomy of opinions of various people about going in with the IPKF into Sri Lanka. The Tamil Nadu, the feeling was totally different. They had a lot of soft corner for Tamils of Sri Lanka. In Delhi, perhaps it was more practical. You wanted a stable level, you wanted to stabilize them and yet get enough for the Tamils by a more democratic process than rather than by a terrorist movement or an insurgency of sorts. Now, uh, at the end of the day, what do you say? Was it worthwhile going in?
Brigadier Chatterjee, you have very nicely, put everything into a capsule. That's pretty much what actually happened on ground. And today, 34, 35 years later, to opine whether it was right or whether it was wrong for us to go in, it is a futile exercise, in the sense that at that particular point of time, those who were in power, those who were making policy, they felt that Sri Lanka was in our sphere of influence, and any kind of activity over there is going to impinge adversely on our security, and therefore they had to take action. The only problem was that all this planning, all this thing was happening in a between a very small coterie of people, and the guys who are actually supposed to be doing it, that is the military, the Air Force, the Navy, the Army, we were just not there in the decision loop. We never knew. Till about 48 hours before we were launched, then we got our orders and we just suddenly moved. And since most of the Indian Army at that particular point of time in 87 were just returning to their peace stations after brass tacks and checkerboard and things like that, units had very little strength with them. There was, for more than a year, people had not been sent on leave, people had not been sent on courses, so that the army was actually literally catching up. And everybody thought that this is just a peacekeeping mission. We just have to go and disarm a few guys, and everything will be over. We should be back in 6-7 months. And that's why most of the units which came there, they just came with their personal weapons. They didn't bring any support weapons like heavy mortars or anything of that sort. And then when suddenly the militants did not behave the way we wanted them to behave, we expected them to behave, then it started into a kind of a shooting war. And that literally caught us off guard. And initially we just battered in, and frontal attacks along 5 different routes, trying to get to because Jaffna was supposedly the capital of this Elam, which the LTT was and the other militant groups were talking about. So the idea was that if we get hold of Jaffna, then the problem is 80% solved. But in hindsight, now we know that was only the beginning of the problem. getting to Jaffna was only one third of the problem. 2/3 was still lying because those people melted away into the urban from the urban areas into the rural areas, and it became a one long campaign of insurgency like we were fighting in Mizoram or Nagaland or Tripura or wherever.
Right. Thank you. My next question to you, Colonel Atul, is will just give us an overview of the book. I mean, what all does it cover? How does it cover? If you can just put it across.
Well, the book is laid out in 18 chapters. I've given out the preface, that's mine, followed by a foreword by General Naidu, which is given out a very succinct description and very point bullet form. What is the USP of this whole operation? Then that is, of course, followed by Colonel Nair's wonderful background to the entire operation, and he's linked it up from that 1987 to the present day with the Chinese. He's linked it up very well. Even his first chapter. Thereafter, we come to other chapters, that is the Jaffna airborne operations, followed by that is Colonel Baduria is narrated it. He was part of that airborne force in which JAK LI lost their platoon, and with one survivor, Gora Singh. And then followed by an account of Brigadier Manjeet, who was a wonderful leader, got a Mahavir Chakra. Then followed by the mechanized operations. It's one of the longest chapters, incidentally, because these guys, people think they did nothing, but in the initial operations, they were pretty busy and penny packets all over. They had a tough time at hand, and they suffered enormous casualties. And they had one posthumous Sena medal and one, of course, Veer Chakra, that is Colonel Col amongst the other awardees. This was followed by a very good account by General Kanwar, the retired as the DG Aviation. He's given a fantastic overview. They've done 18,500 sorties with their helicopters, and back-to-back flying they have done. A different type of, as forward OPs to casualty evacuations to accosting VIPs to accosting the top LTT leadership. This is then followed by another account, Air Force account, that is about me, a chopper pilot who got Veer Chakra supporting the army in Jaffna. This is followed by a naval account, which was mind-boggling in its scope. If you read that chapter, you will be surprised at the scale of operations the Navy done. So I don't have time to put all across all that. Then they have an officer who got 14 bullets in him. He survived when he was written off in Chennai. He was sent to Pune. He was in ICU for more than 1 month, Captain Sahota. He survived. He's an entrepreneur now. He's a live example of an officer who's got sheer courage. Then we have one from EME also. He was looking after the maintenance of the communications and ensuring its operability, providing a real link to India. Then we have an account of a submariner, Commander Agashe, whose dad was a Second World War veteran. Then we have a near-miss situation, Brigadier Rajiv Chibbard, very interesting account, followed by another naval account by Lieutenant Commander Deepak Agarwal, who got Veer Chakra. We have a doctor's account, Colonel Batra, who writes extremely well. Then we have a Tiger's Den, Colonel Banerjee, 6th GR, they lost their CO, MVC, Colonel Bakshi, followed by the chapter of Lieutenant Rajiv Sandhu. He is the high point of my book, and I must tell you that he is the inspiration which actually made me write this book. The gentleman got his award after 2 years, and the story has to be read. I can't say anything more about him. Followed by, of course, my own unit, Colonel V.K. Rao. He'd come for a short tenure, but he did a wonderful job. He did a wonderful operation in the jungles and got us the biggest catch of the about approximately 20 months tenure. Followed by Brigadier Grewal's account of Garhwal. Then followed by a very good closing chapter by Colonel Mohan. He has brought out all the legacy issues very well. So this is broadly the layout of the chapter. Bibliography follows, and that's routine stuff.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you for describing the book in detail. And I have my next question, which again I would request you, Colonel Atul, to please answer. You had a large number of casualties there. Our boys were fighting, beyond our borders, beyond our shores. They were fighting in a foreign country, and at the same time, getting a lot of casualties to ourselves. Now, tell me, how difficult was it to keep the morale going under such circumstances?
Firstly, I must share with you, we were very lucky. We went in 1988 January. 5th of January, we were inducted into Trincomalee. That Trincomalee sector was dealing with a communal problem. It was a communal cauldron, but we are not running into bullets like Jaffna, fortunately. So we had a much better time. We had a total of six killed and about 7, 8 who were wounded in this whole operation. So, to be very fair and frank, we did not really see the tough side of it. Those Jaffna guys saw it, we did not. Then, even when we were particular, we got time, we got breathers, though we had to do all these operations. So, that is one. But nevertheless, the beauty of our Jawan is that he is the Naam Namak Nishan type. He's not looking for something big. Regimental spirit is what puts them across everywhere, be it now in Galwan or anywhere, even at that time. However, I must add that given the kind of communication, the prevalence of grey warfare, social media, if I were to go into Sri Lanka at this point of time, it would be very difficult to cocoon him in the typical unit environment at this point of time. So I think our job was far easier that time, though some people may not agree with me. We had very good administration, I must say. It was one of the best. I've never had the type of ration anywhere, and nobody will disagree with me. That much I can tell you. We had a very good R&R system, rest and reorg. It was implemented by General Mehta when he was GOC 57 day. He had tried it out and kept a special facility for that. So, and unit administration, as long as you are sound in subunit management, there was never any problem. That's how we managed it.
Right. Thank you.
I just
Let's.
like to add here, Brigadier Chatterjee, that
Yeah, sure.
when we were landed in Palali in Jaffna, none of us knew what was going to happen. After the shooting had started, people were being inducted, and these Jawans who came in, they were airlifted from places like Agra, Gwalior, Lucknow, and straight from an exercise area. They've just come to their peace station, spent a few days with their families, and they were back in action in a totally strange kind of a place. And all they had with them was Shakarpara, which was issued to them before they mounted the planes in their mounting bases. And when they landed, believe you me, for 48 hours to 72 hours, they survived only on those shakarparas and a few coconuts which they were able to locate. And thereafter, like what Colonel Atul says, the administrative tail caught up, and they also did a fantastic job. The mounting base in Chennai, the major who was commanding that, he has to be really congratulated, because this that particular unit was geared to for a sub area. It was not meant to look after feed and provision 4 divisions. But the way they went about it is just too much. I mean, so like in all the wars it has happened with us, we have taken the first blow, but we absorbed it, and we recoiled, and we came back with such a punch that that is probably characterizes our armed forces.
Well, I think you put this character traits of the forces very well across. You absorb the blow, and then you have still the dum in you to get back into the battle and then push the guy back. Well, let's get on to my last and final question. And again, Ravi, this is to you. You see, we went in unprepared. We were talking about it last time when we discussed the issue. But we came out with a lot of body bags, a huge lot of body bags. Now, dispassionately, did we achieve something really good, big, lasting over there? Something which can be called tangible, or could we have done any better?
So at a personal level, I may differ, but then the fact remains, Brigadier Chatterjee, that we had a mandate to go and disarm the militants, and thereafter, pacify the population to the extent that the Sri Lankan government is able to hold elections and implement the 13th Amendment to their constitution, that is providing a administration for the northern and eastern provinces. If we restrict ourselves to that goal, I think we more than achieved. We were able to bottle up the entire LTT, the militant forces, into a small pocket of jungles near Mulati. We were finally, the Sri Lankan army got them and killed Prabharan also. And the entire countryside was pacified. Towns and townships were running, schools were running, buses were running, trains were running, and normal life had almost reached back, I would say, 75 to 80%. And when the elections were held, IPKF provided security. Fair elections were held. These elections were being observed by foreign observers, and the provincial government was established. And it was only thereafter that once the new president of Sri Lanka requested the government of India that thank you, your job is done, we would like your people to leave. And we got our instructions through our channel of command. And that is how then a very orderly withdrawal was done. It was not something like the way the Americans left Afghanistan. We did not even leave a scrap of the iron which had some military value behind. Everything, even our destroyed tanks and guns and vehicles, whatever, any military equipment that we had carried in, we brought it out. And it was done in a very orderly fashion without a single casualty, and the entire lot was able to successfully evacuate over a period of about a week. So I would say that we more than enough, I mean, more than amply, we covered the mandate that was given to us.
Yeah, I quite agree with you. In fact, you brought in a very fine comparison. The way the Americans have left Afghanistan, leaving all their warlike equipment out there in Afghanistan itself, and the way you described, we withdrew with everything that we had to. We could withdraw, and whatever else is there is already destroyed over there. I would say, going by that count itself, the Indian Army has performed extremely well over there. Right. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for coming on to BharatShakti.in and being so kind to spare your time. I'm sure our viewers will also have found this interesting. Thank you, Col
Thank you, sir.
Kochhar.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
And thanks, viewers. Thanks for joining us on BharatShakti.in. And do join in now and then, you will find such interesting stories. Thank you.